Welcome everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar organized especially for you guys, industrial design students. And we organized this webinar with TUE SkillsLab and Speech Republic. My name is Eline and I'm part of the TUE SkillsLab student team, and together with my colleague Lonneke, we have organized this workshop. Before we start, I first want to tell you something about TUE SkillsLab. Oh, I hear somebody cannot hear me. But Lonneke, you can hear me, right? Have other people also this problem? Okay, I think we just go on. Maybe Suzanne, you can try to refresh your browser. It's also the first time we use this software. Okay, so TUE SkillsLab, what do we do? Our goal is to help you guys, students, with your career, and we do this by organizing soft skill workshops. These workshops are often related to one of these topics. For example, we have a thesis writing workshop every quarter, but we also have teamwork and communication workshops, presenting and pitching like this one, but also workshops about burnout prevention, stress management. And of course, we're now in a special situation. Normally, we have workshops of 2 to 3 hours, and we always hire professionals to help you with specific questions. Normally, the workshops are on campus, and every quarter we have a different program. So the workshops change all the time. Here you see, for example, a few workshops we organize in the next few weeks, and you can still subscribe for these workshops. You can subscribe via our website, but you can also subscribe for a newsletter. Subscribing for this newsletter is the easiest way to stay up to date, because you will receive an email at the beginning of every quarter with a flyer of all our workshops. So to summarize, you can go to our social media channels, Instagram and Facebook. You can also subscribe for a newsletter. And if you ever struggle with one of your soft skills in the future, or you just have a lot of time and want to improve your soft skills, think about us, TUE SkillsLab, and hopefully we will see you during one of our next workshops. Thank you. And now I would like to give the word to Beert, who will give you tips about online presenting.
Yes, thank you very much, Eline. I see I'm now officially the presenter also of this webinar. So thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Beert Beukenhorst, and I'm a speech coach at Speech Republic. And at Speech Republic, we improve stories. That's the basic. We do that in all kinds of ways. And apparently also this webinar is a demonstration of that, and is proof of that. We do that in all kinds of forms. We are looking for the fundamentals of communication, and that is exactly what we're going to explore in the next hour and a half. It is definitely designed to be an interactive session, so I will, together with Natasha, we will chop up this webinar in 2 pieces. The first piece will be geared towards content, and the second part will be geared towards more the technological questions on how to create a good video and what are the tips and tricks that you had to take into account also in that respect. Before I want to give the floor to Natasha also to introduce herself, just a few elements of the technical aspects. In your right browser, you will see that there is a chat function and there's a Q&A function. There's definitely the option to have questions, and we will want to address those questions also. If you have one, please use the Q&A section for that, to post your question. We're going to pool them. We're going to make use of those questions also, and we'll include them in the webinar. I will apologize beforehand. We will not be able to give you answers on every question in life in general, but also presentation-wise. So please just write down your questions at the Q&A, and we will ask you to pool. We will pool them, and we will make sure that at least the majority of the important questions will be addressed. All the way at the end, there will be also the option to have more Q&A with the two of us after this part. The chat function is more if you just want to say something, but we will be less geared towards the chat function than towards the Q&A to have the setup of the interaction. Then, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Natasha Jacobs.
Hi everyone, thanks Beert. As Beert said, I'm Natasha Jacobs. I am a speech coach with Speech Republic, but prior to this I used to be a broadcast journalist. So creating stories and videos was my daily bread and butter. And I'm excited to be working with all of you today to show you that you can create great video content without having to have professional gear. It's about a bit of patience, a bit of practice, and a lot of creativity, which I know as industrial design students, you all have. So without further ado, we'll kick off with our content section, and it's back to you, Beert.
Thank you very much. It almost feels like a news show. Yes, we all, with Speech Republic, we bring our different backgrounds. And Natasha used to be a broadcaster. I used to be a history professor. So I'm very much used to giving these classes. But of course, in these times, everything is different. I'm not used to giving a class to 200 people without actually seeing a single one of them. So please make use of the Q&A to have the interaction in there. Also, we will be working today on how you can create your presentation and your research. I have to rephrase that. Your research that you prepared for the demo day. How do you transform that into a pitch? How do you transform that into a pitch with impact? And that is already a challenging task just in normal circumstances, right? If you have to give your presentation, it's always stressful. So it's always anxiety provoking. In this situation, it can be even more challenging. You have to communicate through a screen. You have to create a small little video. So it is totally logical and actually pretty healthy, I guess, that there is an element of stress related to this demo day. We're going to help you. We're going to give you some tips and tricks. We're going to look also for the fundamentals of communication, how to pitch, which you can apply to either if you maybe create this 90-second video for demo day, or maybe also if you're in a different stage of your education, you can use those same elements in your presentation that you will give maybe for a live audience.
Peter, I have a question.
Yes.
Technical. Can you maybe make Lonneke a host?
Of course. Well, I was just made host, so how do I make her host?
So go to the participants, search in the list.
In attendees. Kijk eens even. Lonneke. Yes. I can make you a panelist, Lonneke. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think now if you click on... Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah?
Oh, you can now click on her name and then you can make her host.
I can assign privileges. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, that's the thing in the virtual world. I can still be hosting this webinar without actually being the host. That is a good thing. Guys, just want to start off with a really small little poll. You are all industrial designers. You are all preparing for an important moment in your academic career. You have done a lot of research throughout to get solutions for design questions, design problems, and you have thought about it. You had your creativity put in there, and then it's the moment that you need to present. Stressful, but also an opportunity to really demonstrate, of course, the skills that you have and the skills that you have learned in the past years. Before we kick off, I just want to have a quick question also to just check if the polling situation works. I'm going to open a poll now. please answer the question. Basically, the question is, to what extent are you stressful for this demo day? And please let me know in the chat if this poll is not visible. Yes, I see this work a lot. Very well. Can you also see the tracker of this Q&A now at this moment? Well, the results are in, and it's good. We have a small percentage of highly confident people. That is really good. No problem. You were born ready for this. This is good. 7%. We have 15% who will say this will be a challenge, but we will get there. Absolutely. 30%, I guess it will work, but we still have a long way to go. Well, I feel for you. And there's 1% who will not be sleeping, but only will be crying until demo day. So please hang in there, pay close attention. Also, please make sure that you have your project, that you have it in your mind. We will be working with it. There will be interaction, and I'm going to give you a few assignments also to work with immediately, which means that in the end of this webinar, you will have already the core of your presentation set up. Okay. Let's see. When I was preparing this, I got the description of what your presentation, whatever form it takes, needs to comply to. And this was the text. Please read with me. Via multiple iterations in your project, you will develop a functional prototype, a demonstrator that features parts of an interactive system and or provides a partial experience of a service for the considered stakeholders. Depending on the project, the demonstrator enables you to show the integration of multiple expertise areas and your development as a professional industrial designer. Well, I worked for many, many years in academia, and these are exactly the kinds of texts where I think, it's a good thing that I don't have to grapple with these texts every day again, because if I would read this and there would be an expectation that I create my presentation based on this, I would really stress out. Because the question is, what does this say? What does this mean? Or what do we need to do with it? Well, if we really boil it down, your presentation really needs to be brought back to the core. And there are a few fundamental questions that basically needs to be answered. And this is irrelevant if you take it on a 7-minute presentation or you take a 90-minute presentation. Basically, you need to answer the question, what did you make? Why did you make it? What was the problem that you were solving? How can it help the person for whom it was made? What is the solution? And then, but that is actually a secondary question, how does it work? So what is the process? Okay, and because you just have 90 seconds, I really want to zoom in on actually the most important part of your presentation is to boil your research down to one sentence. It sounds super easy, but it is a little challenging. Let me show you an example. There's this website, and I'm going to show you this website where they have created certain novels, and they boiled it down to one particular sentence. Let me see. Go. Here we see this website. So we can see the sun also rises. Okay, what's when it boils down? Group of listless lost generationers mill around Europe, drink, fight bulls. Period. Okay. Crime and punishment. Unstable and self-important young man murders old woman for kicks, feels guilty, turns itself in. Okay. We have, I don't know if you know how voluminous the magic mountain is. Thomas Mann, chummy young man, visits cousin at Swiss tuberculosis sanatorium, is dubiously diagnosed with disease, stays 7 years and listens to a long-winded political arguments on eve of First World War. Okay. Wait. So here you see that it's definitely a challenge to boil it down to one sentence, but it's definitely not impossible. When I was doing a lot of research in academia, I was writing my thesis, and I was confronted with a website by my roommate. My roommate said, yeah, you check out this website. It was a website where your thesis is boiled down to only one sentence. And let me see, I'm going to check if I'm going to share that also. LOL, my thesis. Okay. Here you can find gems of pulling an all-nighter is kind of shitty for your brain, but we are still not exactly sure why. The title of the real dissertation is Effective 24-Hour Sleep Deprivation, Cerebrovascular Reactivity in Healthy Volunteers. The point that I'm making is that no matter how complicated your research is, you are always possible to boil it down to a very simple and clear sentence. And this is exactly the challenge that I'm posing to you right now. I would like you to go in the polling. I'm going to open a new poll, and I'm going to challenge you to write down your research project in one single sentence. And there are a few basically two elements that this sentence needs to follow. One is it needs to explain you what it is that you made and what does that thing do. That is basically it. So what is it? What does it do? Okay. This is a really challenging exercise, but if you have done this, you have already built a crucial component of your presentation, and from there on it's easier to build it up. And also, if you only have 90 seconds, yeah, you need to really make sure that you make use of those 90 seconds. So I'm going to open the poll, and I'm going to challenge you to write down your research project in just one single, relatively short sentence. And we're going to make use of the questions or the answers that you're going to give. So the poll is open, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about this because it is not an easy task. So good luck with that. Okay, so See you are working on that. Please give me some feedback in the Q&A if this was super easy, if you just have this sentence ready, or if it really takes some time to formulate that sentence. What is the thing that I created and what does it do? Christian, super easy. Oliver kind of had it ready. Good. Good. That's nice. That is nice. Really the first step. Julie, I think I'm missing the what my project is. Well, and you will not be the only one. For some, they have it really easy and it's clear on the top of their mind. Sometimes you have to work around it a little bit if you boil it down to the core. Having that sentence is extremely valuable and it will help you in any presentation that you're going to give. So that is already the first step. What is exactly this sentence that I'm working with? Because then from there on you can build it up. And I'm going to give you the second step on how to build it up. That's basically how can you bring that sentence to life, because there is an element, there is an effect, right? Your design has a certain effect. It is a solution to a problem that you just created. What I'm going to show you now, because I cannot stream the YouTube video here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a YouTube link in the Q&A. And I'm sorry, in the chat. There will be in the chat, I'm going to post a YouTube link. This will be sent to all of you. And please click on that link. This is a 90-second video, and this is exactly an example of a demo video for demo day that you can use if you're inspiration. And here is the link. And please take a few seconds to watch this YouTube video. Okay, I send the link again for those who weren't able to find it. It's a little lost sometimes in the string. If you look at this video, what I think she really beautifully demonstrates is there is a problem, right? There's clearly a problem. And the problem in this case is basically it's distraction. So what she designed was something to combat the problem of the distraction. Okay. And so the distraction is one thing, right? And that is one problem. And the key in having a sharp presentation is to make that problem as visible as possible. Why? Because you are offering a solution on the other hand. Yes, really. If we really boil it down, this is the contrast that we're looking for. Okay. So the first step would be to make that problem as big as possible. So if, for instance, the problem is distraction, then distraction leads to, well, then we have to think about it. Then we have to open up our ideas on what would be the possible impact of this problem, and that would be distraction. So if this lady in the video is distracted, well, what does that mean? That means that she cannot do her work anymore, really focused. Okay, if that is a part of the problem, what does that mean? It means that she will need to maybe work overtime. Okay, if she is working in a distracted environment, what would be the impact of all the other colleagues around her? Okay, and if all the other colleagues around her would be impacted by the distraction, what would it do, for instance, with the company at large? Okay, if the company at large is suffering from a distraction disease, how would that influence, for instance, the city where this company is in, or maybe the joint ventures, etc.? You see where I'm going? This is just following up on one particular element. In this case, it is the problem. So we have to sort of navigate this problem and make it bigger. Okay, we can also flip that around, of course, because if the solution is also followed in the same logic, then you can say, okay, so if this distraction is being stopped, that means that the lady in the video, yeah, that she can work really focused. Okay, if she can work really focused, what does that mean? That means that if she's really focused, then she will be more productive. Okay, so if she's more productive, what does that mean? Right, so what is the benefit of the solution? And this is basically a game that you can play again and again and again throughout. And it is interesting because it is really, really valuable information, sort of the information from which you can build your presentation. What is the problem? Make that as big as possible. And make that the solution, make that also as big as possible. Try to see what the next steps are. Okay. In order to experiment a little bit with that, I'm going to try to see if this works. What I want you to do is just look around in the area that you are now. I have no clue where you are sitting, of course. I can't even see you. So, but look around in the area that you are. And just imagine that we are creating a problem in the area that you are looking right now. And the problem is cleaning is impossible. Maybe this really relates to the place that you're actually looking at right now. It could be, but cleaning is impossible. Okay, so what does that mean? And look around in the area. And for instance, when I'm looking around here, and I would imagine that cleaning is no longer possible, that would mean that there would be dust everywhere. Okay. If there would be dust everywhere, then the couch that I'm looking at, the color will fade, but it also will be tearing at one point. It will fall apart. Okay, if the couch will fall apart, maybe animals will come in there, and the animals will be part of this room right now. Okay, so I'm following up what would happen if I create the problem. Okay. And maybe when you are looking around in your dorm, you could see what the effect would be if that problem would occur. And now flip it around. If we create a solution, namely that we can clean again, what does that mean? What is the effect of that? Well, in this case, it would mean that the area that I'm sitting now would be clean, would be nice, and the effect of that would be that I would feel comfortable sitting there. And when I feel more comfortable when I'm sitting here, that also means that I can be more creative, etc., etc. So this is the game, and I don't know if you experience it in the area around you, but see how you can follow up on the problem on the one hand, and then you can follow up on the solution on the other hand. And then you already have a really, really nice basic structure for your presentation. On the one hand, what did I make? This is what I made. It's in one sentence. It is a solution to this particular problem. And we're going to show you really nicely how heavy that problem can be, how big that problem can be, and how interrelated that problem actually is. Okay. The good side is then you can bring it back to the solution and contrast that and make that solution as big as possible, and really, really be clear on not making your own solution too small. It is a tendency that I have seen a lot with not only students in the universities, but also with people that I train now who come from politics, who come from business. The tendency to make your own solution small. No, your solution is linked into a very, very large web. And it is when you address that web of interrelated connections, then you can add more force to the problem and to the solution that you are proposing. Okay. See some questions that are coming up here also. Okay, so now we have a first step. We created your presentation in one sentence. Then we have a second one, and that is we added both the problem and the solution to it. Okay. Then we go to the third step, and that is actually a really crucial step to think about how is your problem and the solution that you propose integrated, and how is it relevant for the people who needs to listen to this. Okay. If we go back, if you remember the video that you just watched, the video about the distraction tool, or the anti-distraction tool to be more precise, what you saw is that a lot of people can benefit from that. Okay, so here is the next question that I have for you. And the next question would be, who are the stakeholders of your solution? Who is possibly benefiting? Who is possibly touched by your solution? So I'm going to give you a small example that I just made really quickly based on the video that I just showed you. And this is like a web. There's a thing. That is the thing that you designed, and it's here in the center. It is the do not disturb flag, or the app, or it is the do not disturb thing that was created. Okay, who is linked to this particular app? That is a really crucial question, because who is your audience? Okay, we can think it's the employee, because she will be using it. It's the employer, because he will feel or she will feel the benefits of the less distraction on the work floors. Will be the whole department, the whole floor will be affected by it. Okay, another stakeholder will be the colleagues of that employee who is using it. Then there's the company at large who is a stakeholder. Then maybe the city, etc., etc., etc. Okay. The question for you now is also to take a minute and to make, you can just do this easy on a piece of paper that is laying next to you. You can just make this little web of stakeholders. And I'm really trying to boil it down to the bare minimum. So take a minute to make this web. Who is touched by your proposed design solution? Okay, take it away. Good question, Anna. The question was, can you now jot down for yourself a web of stakeholders as you see now on the screen also? In the middle, you can place your design solution. And around it, you can make a web of all the parties, all the elements who are touched by your design solution. Okay. If you did this, you have an overview of who is your audience. And then again, we're going to build up this presentation in a really, really small steps. So one is, what is the core sentence? Okay, what is the problem? What is the solution? There has to be some kind of contrast in that and make that really visible also. And then the last question that you need to answer is, who is being touched? And then the question that you should ask yourself is basically, what is in it for them? So what are they gaining with your design solution? So if you have a solution in the middle, the do not disturb flag in the example, then you have an employee. Okay, what's in it for the employee to start using this? Well, in this case, it is, of course, well, less distracted, more productive, maybe a happier workday. Okay, what's in it for the employer? Okay, what's in it? Well, the employer will have more efficient people working there. The employer will have more happy people working for him or her. Okay, the colleagues, the do not disturb flag. What's in it for them? Okay, what's in it for them? Well, we can just think out loud, of course. The colleagues will have a better understanding of the needs and of the boundaries of each other. When can I talk to somebody, when not, etc., etc. This is playing around with this question, what's in it for me, that every person on the other side of the screen or on the other side of members of the audience, they also always have this question in their head. So if we really boil it down simply, it comes down to 3 simple steps. And this is exactly the same whether you do it in a 90-second presentation or if you have 9 hours to tell it. Okay, the core has to be there. What is it in one sentence? What is the contrast between the problem and the solution? Also, what is the problem that it solves? And also, what is in it for the people who may be using this, the audience, the stakeholders? If you can answer these 3 questions, you have a much simpler way of building up your presentation. And from there on, you can add elements to it. For instance, about the process. How did you come to your solution? But please beware, and that's what I would like to give to you also, don't start focusing too much on the process at first. I always think about it a little bit as when I go on a holiday, I first go to a destination, right? I first think about the destination where I want to go to. I'm not thinking about the first gas station that I'm going to stop. Or not the airport. That will not be the highlight. The process, most of the time, is less interesting. The end goal, the effect of it, that is the most interesting. So if you're setting up your presentation, make sure that the core is super clear, that the problem and the solution are very clear, and that you incorporate in your presentation what's in it for them. Okay, with these 3 steps, you'll definitely be able to set up your presentation in such a way that you have more impact. I want to look at a few questions before I want to hand it over to Natasha to go to the technical aspects of it. I see there are 4 questions here addressed, and I just want to quickly touch upon them because they're all content related. Okay, Matthias, I see that you wrote, I feel that when I boil it down to one sentence, I am being way too superficial. And that is absolutely true. Just one sentence is definitely not enough. On the other hand, for this presentation, you only have 90 seconds. So there is a limited amount of time that you can sort of fill it up. But this is exactly the problem. This is exactly why it is so extremely hard to come to that sentence, because you constantly will have that feeling, yeah, but it's also related to this. It's also related to that. It's also related to that. Once you have found that core, then after that, it is much easier to build it up again from there. So then it's much easier to say, okay, this is the bare minimum that you need to know about my design proposal. This is the bare minimum that you need to know. Okay. From there on, you can add maybe elements on how beautiful the problem is or how beautiful the solution is. Then you can add elements on why it was such a fascinating process or not. So there are many ways and many means to sort of add layers to the complexity of your problem and of your research. But I really would like to challenge you to find that one sentence first. Dida asks, how would it work if the design is not based upon a problem? Okay, that is an interesting one, because in a way design is solution oriented, and if the design is not based upon a problem, it will have some kind of effect. It always needs some kind of effect, right? Even if beauty, if the goal, if you say, yeah, well, I just made this because it's really beautiful, then the goal is to make things more beautiful, to make it more appealing to the eye. Maybe that will result into a more favorable atmosphere in the room. So even if you are not focusing necessarily on solving a problem, there will be a certain effect of your design, and that effect needs to be part of your presentation. So whether it's not per se a problem, then it will be maybe a solution. And if you say, well, it's neither a problem nor a solution, I would really like to challenge you to think about, okay, so what is the core and why did I make this, right? Yeah, this is a good one. Job, you ask, is it okay to make all of these assumptions if you make the problem bigger? For our project, we did this, but we got the feedback that we can't just make assumptions like that. Good point, good point. This is the tricky part. This is also where you need to explore first in preparation of your presentation, okay, what would possibly be the impact of my design, right? So you're following up on what it could be, where it could touch upon. And this will be a check for yourself also. Can I still reason? Can I still make a logical connection? There is a fine line between making it an exaggeration and to be very firm about it. For instance, if I would say, well, with this pen, for instance, with this pen, I'm going to write things down that will totally change the world. That will be a total exaggeration of the possibilities of this pen. On the other hand, if I would say, this pen allows everybody who walks into this room to create their ideas and put them on a flipboard and thereby possibly change parts of their world. It's a way of phrasing, but it is also trying to first explore how big the potential impact is without making it clear that it will definitely happen no matter what. I hope that makes sense, Job, because I would feel bad if I would invite you to make the problem bigger and you would have feedback, yeah, no, that's too big. So please be very wary also and cautious in not exaggerating it, but do also be aware that your design solution has a lasting impact and that goes beyond the first steps. Yeah, good question, Lars. You ask, what if there isn't necessarily a problem, but rather an opportunity? Designing for the exploration of sound. This is really interesting because here we then don't have the contrast between here's a problem and there's the solution, but you can just follow up on the opportunity. And then I would really invite you to make that opportunity big and to challenge that and to say, okay, what if the exploration of sound is being made possible by the design solution that you came up with? Okay, what will possibly enable that? And then you can sort of tap into the potential opportunity of your project. Please make sure that that potential is also visible in your presentation. Emily, you say, how can you pitch your process in a few words after you've done this 3-step process? Okay, cool. Here I can give you a very clear answer, Emily. The pitch your process in a few words would be, okay, when we started, this was the situation. What we have right now, this is the new situation, and what I hope it will be in the future will be this situation. It's almost like a comic where you have 3 of these images where you say, okay, I'm going to show you the process, but I'm going to move it into the future also. Like, okay, when we started this project, this and this and this was the situation, and it looked like that. Okay, fast forward, this is how it is now, and we found solutions to these and these problems. in the future, I hope that this and this and this will be possible with this project. And this is how I see this process. These and these will be the challenges, for instance. So you have a really clear structure in first talk about the past, then talk about what the present situation is, and then potentially move it into the future. Stefan, I see here, do you have to name the specific research when you refer to research has shown that in the pitch? Really good question. On the one hand, if you have more time in your presentation, it is, like say, if you have a 5 to 7 minute presentation, I would definitely suggest that you refer to some of the research. I mean, you don't have to read out loud the footnote, of course, but you just say, well, as scientist X or Y or research project A and B demonstrated. You can just refer to that because it's good, because it's testimonials and you clearly demonstrate that you base it on research. In your 90-second pitch, I would be really wary because the footnote will never be part of your one core sentence, right? If that makes sense. Okay. Having said that, and as I said in the beginning, we will not be complete with answering your questions, but we will be following them. I'm going to give the floor to Natasha to give you some practical tips and tricks on how to incorporate the technological aspects of your presentation. Natasha.
Thanks, Beard. Thanks, Beard. I'll just open my presentation. As soon as you make me a presenter, fantastic. So we just spoke about the storytelling elements and what you're creating. A pitch is a story as such, and it's important that you also have a visual connection to your story. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the next Martin Scorsese. This is also not a TikTok video, which I assume most of you are afraid with. You are the generation that is literally born with a cell phone in your hand. But you still want to create a visually captivating story that enhances your pitch. But at the core, your story still needs to be strong. As Beard just illustrated, there are 3 steps to creating a strong story, because if that's not there, all you have is a music video, and even music videos have a strong story, so you need to be cognizant of that as well. So what do you need? The fact is, you don't need to be a professional. I know that people hear things like you need a DSLR camera, you need a fancy editing suite. The fact is, you could create a great pitch with very basic tools, and you're likely sitting with it right now, and that's your laptop and your cell phone. And a bit of creativity. You are all industrial design students, so I know that's oozing from you. Ironically, my youngest brother is also industrial designer. He graduated in 2014. So I know the stress of demo day. I remember him spending hours rendering on, I think it's called Autodesk or AutoCAD, then designing something, then he has to come up with a pitch and all of that. These are things that you are becoming a fay with. Thus, it's not new. It's a bit of a different format, but you can do it. So as I said, a cell phone, a laptop, and creativity. My one call to action to all of you, though, is please do not leave this to the last minute, because you are likely to be caught with your pants down. And I know as students, I was one myself, we like to procrastinate sometimes because we're thinking, oh, the creativity is going to come up and I can do it. Creating a good video, a good presentation, and a good pitch takes time, it takes effort, and it takes practice. So this is something you really don't want to leave until the day before thinking you can slap something together, because you'll do yourself an injustice. Let's start with some of the basics. So now you've created your story, you've gone through the steps, you've figured out what your design does in a sentence, whether it's a solution or an opportunity-based design. You are looking at who your stakeholders are, how it's touching them, what's in it for them. And you've also touched upon lightly about how it works, because essentially that's also important. If you're designing a special chair, you need to lightly state that it swivels to the left, swivels to the right, and that it can adjust upwards and downwards. But you need to put this in a storyboard. And as designers, this is probably exciting to you guys because you design all day. And a storyboard is essentially important because you need to map out how your video is going to match your story. And whether you're going to do this graphically based or whether you're going to shoot a video for this, it's important that you know that which element goes where. So jot it out, draw it out, write it out, make sure that you have that. Then a production schedule, and I know this sounds like a tedious ask, but it's actually just to determine how much time do you need for something. So if you know that you have a graphic design element that needs to render for half a day, make sure that you have enough time. If you need to schedule shooting people, you need to make sure that they're available. If you share an apartment or a house with housemates and they're having a party on the night that you need to design something, maybe not a good idea. So plan all those things in to give yourself enough time for everything. Then a big one. I know that we love using photos and music and all sorts of elements for videos, but if it's not yours, make sure it's royalty and copyright free. And there are a ton of royalty-free music platforms you can use, royalty-free libraries you can use. I can share some of these after the session with you, because unless you use copyright-free or royalty-free elements, if you're using a track by Rihanna, you can be sued. There is tight laws around this, and if anything is made commercial, even more so. So make sure that everything you'll use is either yours or free. And then get a second pair of eyes to watch it before you send it off. I remember being a fresh reporter in the editing suite, editing for days and days and days. And then I send something to air, I go home, I sit on my couch, and then I watch my short insert air. And then I see the same spelling error come up on my screen 3 times. And then I get a very angry editor phoning me up saying, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "I didn't," because I was so tired looking at the same thing over and over again. So make sure you share it with your mum, with your partner, with your flatmate, with a friend, with your teammates before you send it off, just to make sure that everything is looking the way it should and that it sounds the way it should sound. So what do you need? The most important thing when shooting a video is lighting. And of course, if you look at the picture there, very romantic setting, we see him probably sitting on a pier. That's not the way you want to look in your shot. Never underestimate the value of good lighting. It can make or break a video, especially if you're shooting people in action, or perhaps if you're shooting a project or a product live and it's not a design element. And there's easy ways to create good lighting. If you're shooting in a room, make sure that there's a lot of natural light coming in. I, for example, am standing in front of an open window right now. The light is falling on my face. There's no shadows. You can see me clearly. If the room is a bit dark, open all of the windows. You can also use things like table lamps to create little spotlights for yourself. The fact is, it needs to look good, because if people can't see what you're talking about, then your message is lost. So good lighting needs to be around you. You can also get very cheap LED lights. They literally plug into your laptop to use. Conveniently on bol.com, I make use of them all the time, that you can position all around your shots to make sure that everything is lit well. Because again, you don't want to be sitting in shadow. Please feel free to pop some questions. If you have any, we'll track them. If there's anything I've missed. Audiovisual. So the bane of existence is the good old selfie stick. I know some people think they're useless, but when it comes to shooting a video at home, these are pretty handy, especially the tripod standard one, because the fact is your camera is your video recorder and it's also your audio recorder. You do not need a DSLR camera. You do not need a fancy microphone. Everything you need is in the palm of your hand. A tip with this though, if you are shooting on your cell phone, and most of the iPhones and the Huawei phones or the Android phones can shoot in 4K now. Now 4K is an ultimate high, as you know, ultra definition resolution. You do not need to use that for your video. 180p, which you can change in your camera settings, is more than enough. The fact is most televisions and screens aren't ultra HD in any case. So that's your basic camera setting. Now, what's in your background? If you look to me, it's pretty busy behind me. There's a vase of flowers, there's a whiteboard. When you're shooting a person or when you're shooting your design, let's say you have a workable product like a coffee cup and you are shooting this close up, make sure that your background is clear and clean. If there are 1,000 little bobs and bits and interesting things there, The focus is on that and not on your design. So, or anything that needs to be shot, whether it's a person or a product, needs a clear background. White is ideal, or clear from any bright things, gadgety things, so that the focus is where it needs to be, and that's either on the person or on your product. Check your framing. So if you're shooting a TikTok video, right, you are shooting in portrait mode. It's upright, it's clear, it's your face. When you are shooting a video, it always has to be landscape. Because if you don't do this and it's uploaded to platforms like YouTube, you get those dreaded black bars on the side, and that's not pretty. So always make sure that you shoot in landscape. You need stability. So that's where the good old selfie stick comes in. Shooting by hand, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes if you're not the most stable person, you get the Blair Witch effect. You know, when your shot is tossing and turning and people are going, what are you actually focusing on? So this is where your selfie stick comes in handy. And you can either use it in tripod stance or on the selfie stick extension, because it just adds a bit of stability to your shot. So then it's not shaky, it doesn't look like a TikTok video, but actually a semi-professional shoot. And then when it comes to audio, if you want to create, let's say, for example, a graphic design or a video, but you want to record voiceover later, you can use your phone. What you do is you use the voice note function. It might be called something else on an Android device. And then you use the 5-finger rule. And this is very important, because if you don't do that, if you speak too loudly or too close to your microphone, you get that annoying popping sound when you say a B or a P. So what you do is keep the device 5 fingers away from you, so that it needs to be clear, it doesn't have the popping, and choose a room that's quiet. A bathroom is great for music making acoustics. It's not so great for recording a voiceover. So make sure the room is clear, that it's quiet. Close the door if you have a roommate. Sit back, sit up straight or stand up straight, and then you can record your voiceover. And then, of course, there are 1,010 online tools available for you to record and edit your program. On your phone, you can use your video apps. There are a lot of free programs if you do not have something like Final Cut Pro or Audacity or anything to edit. I will send some links through as well of what you can use. But I mean, you're all industrial design students, so I expect this will be very creative side of you. But this is all the basic tricks and tips that you can use. The big thing is prepare, practice, and don't leave it for the last minute, because then you're going to do yourself short, your team is going to fall short, and your production is not going to be what it needs to be. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any technical questions, please pop them through.
Yes, Natasha, I see here one technical question. Do you have tips on making animation software for the video that's easy to use for beginners? Do you have maybe suggestions for that?
There are a few programs. I think I'm going to create, and this I will send through to the TU Skillset team. I will be sending you all a full technical document with some suggestions of free editing programs, free audio programs, also some paid for ones if you want to spend the bucks. But there are 1,010,000 programs these days that can make you an expert in no time. So I will be sending that through to you.
Cool. Jeff, I see your question. Should your own content also be referenced? There the answer is clearly no. There's no need for that, unless you are planning to sue yourself for the use of your own music in the presentation that you're going to give. But only in that hypothetical situation, you should reference yourself to protect yourself from yourself. Anyway, okay. Vera, you have a question. What if the problem is part of a bigger problem? For example, in my case, measuring tools to measuring experience of kids, and that the questionnaires are too hard for the kids. I'm not quite sure if I see the link here between the two problems. The challenge then for you will be in your presentation to find a connection. A story, and a good story, is always built on the relationship between the different elements. Right? So it should not be sort of floating in the air somewhere, your problem. So your problem is coming from somewhere, and your research will be focused because it is zooming in on a particular problem. In that case, if you have two different areas that you are focusing on, spend some time in your presentation to demonstrate how these two are related to each other. And because if you can demonstrate how these two problems are related to each other, your audience will also have a better idea on why the solution is indeed functional or worthwhile and why your design is really good.
Right, I see another question here. Any tips on using screen text or as an addition to voiceover? So again, there are programs for this. My advice would be, some people like to do everything in undertitled captions so that people can view your story without audio. So there's always a backup of that. If that's not your intention, you can just always choose to highlight certain text. So if you're making a relevant point about, let's say, one of the benefits of your design, that's something you can highlight with the text. I personally, there's a balance between your audience. You need to figure out what works for you. There's no right or wrong, as you can completely undertitle it from beginning to end, thus again solving the problem of people not having to listen to the audio, or you can choose just to highlight certain elements. I prefer to keep things simple, unless you have a hard of hearing colleague or a person who struggles with that. I would say highlight if you can. Otherwise, it might get too busy. It all depends on what you're doing with your video itself. Is it graphically driven? Is it a video montage? Is it pictures? The fact is, it needs to be as sleek and as clean as possible, because at the end of the day, people are also listening to your story, because that is the foundation, again, of your video. Otherwise, again, it's just flashy and there's no messaging. So you need to make that decision on what complements your story at a certain time. There was a question about my product is geared towards the elderly, and how do I video now? It's Corona, and I know many of us can't get to see our grandparents. Many are in verzorgingstehuizen. You can use photos with this. Perhaps you can animate some photos. There's a lot of, and for example, here on the screen you see Pixabay. Pixabay is a great reference site with a lot of free photographs. They're royalty free, they're copyright free, they're cost free. Sometimes the photographer just asks you to donate a coffee or to follow them on Instagram to grow their base. So you can use something like that to get stock images of the elderly and perhaps manipulate that with some graphics if you can't get an actual video right now because grandma is not available. Or perhaps you have a friend who is the grandmother who's happy to do a Skype call or a Zoom call, and you can record an element of that perhaps as a video element. Use your creativity. Yeah, I'm very interested to know what you come up with that.
Cool.
Do you have any tips for presenting through online video chatting tools? Okay, yes, I do. This is a big thing. So as you can probably see, I'm standing right now. For presenting, I prefer to stand because then I'm at my most comfortable and my most confident. A lot of people like to sit. So if you are sitting, make sure that your laptop is slightly stacked. So you can use books for this, you can use a plastic box, and then your laptop's eye line, your camera's eye line needs to be just slightly below your natural eye line. So you'll probably see the difference of me looking to my screen and me looking to my camera, and that's what you want to do. You want to focus right there. A little life hack you can do, you can stick a little post-it on the front side of your laptop or computer, just above your camera, and that will force your eye to look there every time, because that's what you want to do. You want to create that connection with the person sitting on the other side and not be staring at yourself or your PowerPoint presentation. So number one would be choose to see whether you are more comfortable standing or sitting. That's very important. And then the other is focus your eye line slightly below, so make sure that you stack your laptop. Lighting is the same. So again, I'm sitting in front of an open window, soft light on your face. If you've got a dark room, grab a table lamp, focus it towards you, but not as a spotlight, slightly back. And make sure that your framing is right. So your framing is kind of with TV. There's always a small section. There must be a section above your head because that corresponds with movement, so you don't jump in and out of your frame. I would say up to half of your shoulders like I am right now, so that if you do talk with your hand, it looks natural and not like you're speaking up here or here. So those are basic tips you can utilize for also a big thing is if you can invest in one of these. This is a wireless pair of earphones. Why this is handy and not to use your laptop sound is sometimes the sound and the audio competes with each other, especially if more people are online, you can hear echo and reverberation. So if you use inner ear you can also use your typical normal one that you plug in, but from an audio perspective, it's much better because you're cancelling out unnecessary noise. So I hope that answers your question, Jeff. Anything else?
Question: do you have tips on making a video for a research project where it is not about the product, but about the answer to the research question? So if I rephrase this, if I understand this correctly, you are not necessarily designing a product, a thing that you can hold in your hand, right? And there will be more people of you who will not have something that you physically design. Sometimes it's just a research. Okay, then you have to think about your own product, basically, on a somewhat more abstract level. Because if you are looking for the answer in that sense, then probably you are either thinking about a certain service that you are creating, or you are a certain process. And the process or that service will have an effect also, right? So what is the effect of having the answer to the research question? What can we do with it, basically? And it sounds like a super fundamental question, a super easy question, but it is a very difficult one. And I must say that in academia, way too often this question has not been answered. Right? We're doing research for the sake of research, but it is definitely in a presentation a very valuable demand from your audience to basically ask, yeah, okay, so why do you do this? Or what is in it? So what can I do with this answer that you just presented me with? Then it is up to you for the presentation to give an answer okay, so what can we do with this? Why is this functional or helpful?
I think this hooks onto Matthias's question. To what extent should the video be about what it is? I feel it also needs to explain how it works from an interaction point of example. Absolutely. Like I said, let's take this, this is Starbucks cup, by the way. For example, let's say you designed it because it retains heat and it's a non-spill cup. It's an easy flip up, flip down mechanism. Absolutely. People do need to know how it works, like a swivel chair. You need to know that it can swivel left, it can swivel right. Maybe it has a built-in heater for your bum. Those things are important, but always go with the rule of 3. So there is science behind this. The human brain at any given moment can remember 3 factoids. And if you are talking about its inner workings, try to minimize it to 3 key points. And your design or your concept might have more than that. But try and find the 3 key ones that you think highlights its capabilities best and focus on addressing those in your 90-second pitch. I hope that answers your question. Okay, do you have tips for managing stress before and after presentation, especially for people who know they aren't verbally strong during presentations and have fears about this? A very basic thing, and I used to do this when I first started working in television. And just to give you background, I studied law, so I didn't study to be a journalist or a presenter. It's something that I happened by chance and I got kind of kicked into when I left varsity at 21 to do. And somebody taught me this, and it's a very basic breathing technique. And you close your eyes, and it sounds very dumb, but you close your eyes. Just get into a calm state of mind, or just have a blank mind for that moment, and breathe deeply 5 times. And I can tell you, I've used this for TV, I've used this for radio, just deep breaths just to calm your heart rate down and just to center yourself a little bit. But I promise you, it's never about being perfect. There is not a single presentation, there is not a single Obama speech, there is not a single news bulletin that is absolutely perfect. It's about being real and about being your best self. So when you are calmer, that happens. So deep breaths, close your eyes if you need to, and there's another one. If before it starts, if you have a moment before the presentation, before all eyes on you, look into the space that you're in and try to find 10 things. So you see the dustbin, you see the lighting, you see the window, you see the carpet, you see the table. Find 10 things. Then you realign yourself, and then you look at those same 10 things, but you only move on once you see a little detail. So for example, in the wall right now, I see a little crack, and in the window, I see a little speck of dirt. Try and find those little detail things, and it will also help you just refocus and calm yourself. Because the calmer you are, the better it will go. I know inside your heart is beating and you get that horrible dry mouth feeling. Take a deep breath. Just think to yourself, look around you, and then just be yourself. You're not playing a role. You're not required to be the perfect presenter. You're required to be real. And you're all very capable industrial designers. You wouldn't be here right now if you weren't. And whether it is a client or your examinator or your colleagues or your fellow students, they're generally interested in what you have to say. So just believe that you have something to say, and then just calm yourself in the process to create that. Anything else?
Just to add to that, indeed, Natasha, like finding this state of calm and relative comfort is a big question in presentations. And I can also assure you, 100% calmness will not be reached, and that is a good thing also, because you are there, you are confronting yourself in a way with people who will be judging you. In essence, this is what is happening. Please be conscious that you don't have to find the perfect form. Just really stick to the core of what you want to say and check for yourself if you did your research good. You are just owning that stage at that moment, and just try to feel more and more comfort, because that is just your moment, right? Also know that a lot of people, I think that, well, I can't put a percentage on it, but a large majority of the people who we train here, no matter how high they are in the tree, they always are terrified for presentations. This is a universal thing, and some people are just better in hiding this. Yeah.
Right. There's a question about, is there a perfect way to end a pitch? Yes, but there's no secret ingredient in the sense of you have to do this. The perfect pitch is something that tantalizes people, answers their question, but always leaves them wanting a little bit more. So how you fill that in is up to you. So yeah, make sure that your ending leaves something, but that also answers the question. So people want to know when again, let's go back to the stupid coffee cup. What's in it for me? That needs to definitely be answered. Also, the solutions you've offered or the opportunities that you've seen, how it works. Then at the end, yeah, leave them wanting more. And how you fill that in is up to you.
To add to that, Stefan, also there are basically two routes that you could try out, but always try it out for yourself if it works or not. One would be to end with that core sentence that you found, because then again you emphasize, okay, and therefore blah 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 blah. Then that is the core from your whole presentation that is immediately visible and tangible for everybody. Alternatively, if you want your audience to do something, you can end with that particular call to action. If you, for instance, want your in the format that you are preparing for, it's not a good example. But if you want your supervisors to give you like an 8 or a 9 or a 10, finish with that call to action, and therefore I think I deserve just a 9. If in a pitch situation, for instance, after academia, you would pitch, for instance, for a company, then it is definitely worthwhile to end your presentation with the call to action, and therefore I would like you to sign here, or I offer you this, or etc. So what is it that you want your audience to do is a good way of ending your pitch. Matthias, you are asking, is it perhaps possible to get feedback on a video if you already have one? It is most focused on how the design works, though. Yes. If you have any other alternative questions also after this session, you will receive an email from us with also the technical details. please feel free to use our email addresses to maybe send a video, ask a question. If you want to have another suggestion or a tip, please feel free to do that. Natasha, do you have an answer on the tips to make good visualizations in video?
Yeah, it's a little bit unclear. Do you mean in the design process or when to use them? Yeah, it's a bit unclear whether you mean the actual in terms of complementing your story or the actual designing thereof or using it. There's a few options there. So again, I'll send some stuff in the technical document maybe that can answer that question for you. Anything else? We still have a few minutes left. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Or send us an email later. That's also an option.
That's also. If you're shy, you can catch us on email as well.
Okay.
Question from Anna. Anna, it will be sent through by your coordination team. So Elena and Lonica will send it through to you. So don't worry about that. You will get it in a neat little document. So it hasn't been sent yet. It will be sent.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. Having said that, Elena, I'll just give the floor back to you, and then we can wrap it up. Much success, good luck, and please don't remember to breathe in and breathe out before, during, and after the demo day. I hope this session was helpful for you and giving you insights in how to clearly make a presentation with